If your daughter can't breathe properly, maybe she shouldn't be on this flight." The flight attendant's words cut through the hum of the cabin like a blade. Passengers froze mid-sentence. Cameras lifted. A little girl's oxygen mask hissed softly, the only sound between the outrage and disbelief that was about to erupt. Marcus Bennett clenched his jaw, his arm tightening around his daughter Amara. Her tiny frame trembled against him, the soft wheeze from her oxygen mask growing faster with every breath. He looked up, his dark eyes locking onto the flight attendant who stood inches away, her neatly pinned blonde hair and red scarf glowing under the overhead lights like a warning flag. "She has a medical condition," Marcus said, his voice steady but cold. "We informed your airline before we boarded. She's cleared to fly." The attendant crossed her arms. "That's not what I was told. You can't just bring equipment on board without authorization." The passengers nearby shifted uncomfortably. A man in a suit whispered, "That's a kid," while another quietly recorded on his phone. Marcus reached for his backpack under the seat and pulled out a folder, neatly organized medical documents, flight approvals, and a letter from Amara's doctor. "Everything's right here," he said. "She's recovering from a lung surgery. She needs this oxygen, especially during altitude changes." But instead of looking at the papers, the attendant's eyes narrowed. "Sir, I need you to calm down," she said sharply, glancing around as if he were the problem. "You're making other passengers uncomfortable." Uncomfortable? Marcus felt his blood pressure spike. Uncomfortable? His daughter was fighting for every breath, and this woman was more worried about appearances than compassion. "Ma'am," he said, voice trembling between rage and restraint, "the only one making people uncomfortable right now is you." The little girl tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered weakly through the mask. "Did I do something wrong?" His heart cracked. "No, baby. You did nothing wrong," but the attendant didn't stop. She turned to her colleague standing by the aisle, a tall man in a Navy uniform. "We might need security assistance here," she said loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. Gasps filled the air. Several passengers began filming openly now. An elderly woman in the row ahead turned and said, "He's just trying to help his daughter. Leave them alone." The flight attendant ignored. "Sir, if you refuse to cooperate, I'll have to ask you and your child to leave the aircraft." Marcus's breath caught. "Leave the aircraft? Are you out of your mind? She's on life support." "Sir," she repeated, "I'm asking you to disembark before we call airport security." The words airport security sent a cold chill down his spine. He had seen this scene play out before. Different people, same prejudice. His muscles tensed, memories flashing of being judged before anyone even knew his story. He took a deep breath. "You don't want to do this," he said quietly. Her eyes narrowed. "Is that a threat?" Marcus didn't flinch. "No, that's a promise." From the front of the plane, a tall man in a pilot's jacket approached. The captain. His face was calm, but his tone carried the authority of command. "What's going on here?" he asked. The flight attendant straightened instantly. "Captain, this passenger is refusing to comply with crew instructions. His daughter has unauthorized medical equipment." Marcus rose halfway, careful not to jostle Amara. "Captain, my daughter is sick. She's using portable oxygen. Cleared by your airline, documented, approved. I have every paper you need." He handed the folder over. The captain flipped through the documents. His expression shifted from doubt to discomfort. "Everything seems in order," he said. But before he could finish, the attendant interrupted. "Sir, with all due respect, it's still a safety concern. Other passengers—" "Enough!" the captain snapped, lowering the papers. "We are not removing a child fighting for her life. Do I make myself clear?" The cabin erupted with murmurs. Passengers nodded in agreement. Someone clapped. Marcus sat back down slowly, whispering reassurance to Amara. But his heart didn't rest easy. He could still feel the venom in the flight attendant's glare. She leaned closer, her voice low but full of disdain. "You might have gotten lucky this time, but don't think this is over." Marcus stared back. "Ma'am," he said softly, "you have no idea who you're talking to." Her eyes flickered with confusion, but before she could respond, Amara's oxygen monitor beeped, a long, piercing sound that silenced the entire cabin. "Daddy!" she gasped. Marcus shot to his feet. "She needs more oxygen!" The captain rushed over. "We've got medical supplies on board. Call for the emergency kit." But the flight attendant hesitated. "Sir, that's for emergencies only. We can't just—" Marcus snapped. "This is an emergency!" Passengers were shouting now. Someone yelled, "Help the girl!" Another screamed, "Do something!" The captain grabbed the kit himself. "If you won't, I will!" Marcus lifted Amara carefully, adjusting her mask. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "Hang on, baby! Daddy's got you!" As the captain assisted, the entire cabin watched in silence, except the flight attendant, who stood frozen, realizing the entire world was recording her cold-hearted hesitation. When Amara's breathing steadied again, Marcus looked up at her, his voice calm but dangerous. "You just made the biggest mistake of your career," he said. "Because when this flight lands, you're not flying again." The attendant's face drained of color. She didn't know yet, but the man she just humiliated wasn't just a father. He was an FAA safety investigator, and by the time this plane touched ground, she'd wish she'd never spoken a word. The air inside the cabin was thick, not from the recycled oxygen, but from tension that could snap at any second. The flight attendant stood frozen, her hands trembling slightly as she pretended to check her tablet. But she could feel it, every pair of eyes on that plane drilling into her. Marcus sat back down, his arms protectively wrapped around Amara. Her breathing had stabilized, but her small hand still clutched his shirt like a lifeline. He kissed her forehead softly. "It's okay, Pumpkin. Daddy's here." Passengers whispered around them, the hum of speculation spreading through the aisles. A woman a few rows back leaned forward. "Sir, do you want me to post this? I got the whole thing on video." Marcus shook his head gently. Not yet, because he had other plans. From the cockpit door the captain re-emerged, his face tight with concern. "Sir," he said quietly, "your daughter's stable now. We'll get a medic ready when we land. But before we take off, I need to make sure everything is safe." Marcus nodded, calm as ever. "Understood, Captain. But before we take off, I need to make sure something else is safe. Your crew—" The captain frowned. "My crew?" Marcus turned his gaze to the flight attendant who had berated him moments ago. She stood rigid, clutching her notepad like a shield. "Yes," he said. Her name tag glinted under the light. Cheryl Madsen. "Sir, with respect," the captain began. Marcus cut him off, his voice low but commanding. "I'm not just a father, Captain. I'm Marcus Bennett, Senior Investigator, Federal Aviation Administration. I oversee compliance and passenger safety violations nationwide." Gasps erupted from the passengers around them. Phones were raised again, recording every second. The captain's eyes widened, his confidence cracking. "You're far?" Marcus nodded. "And right now your flight isn't going anywhere until I make a few calls." Cheryl's face went pale. She took a step forward, stammering. I didn't know—" "You didn't care," Marcus interrupted, his voice steady as a heartbeat. "You saw a black father and his sick daughter, and you assumed we didn't belong here. You treated her like a problem instead of a child fighting to live." A hush fell over the cabin. Even the engines outside seemed to quiet down. The captain motioned toward the cockpit. "Sir, let's talk privately." "No," Marcus said firmly. "We'll talk right here, in front of the people who witnessed what happened. Because this," he gestured toward Amara's oxygen mask, "this isn't just about my daughter. This is about accountability." Cheryl's lips trembled. "I was just following protocol." "Protocol?" Marcus repeated with disbelief. "Show me where in your protocol it says to threaten a father for protecting his sick child." She said nothing. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his calmness terrifying. "You endangered a medically fragile passenger. You delayed emergency treatment. You refused to release the onboard oxygen kit. That's not protocol, that's negligence and discrimination." The passengers murmured, some nodding in agreement. A man across the aisle raised his voice. "We all saw it. She was out of line," another passenger added. "Yeah." She yelled at him like he was some criminal. Marcus turned to the captain. "I'll need the passenger manifest, the crew roster, and access to the flight report when we land." The captain, visibly nervous, nodded. "Of course, Mr. Bennett." "Good," Marcus said. "Because until this is resolved, this plane isn't going anywhere." The captain blinked. "You're grounding the flight." Marcus's tone was final. "Yes. As of this moment, Flight 482 is officially grounded pending FAA review." The announcement rippled through the cabin like thunder. People began talking, some cheering, others gasping. The intercom chimed, the crew up front unsure what to do. "Sir, please," Cheryl pleaded now, her arrogance replaced by panic. "It was a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to—" "Save it," Marcus said coldly. "If you really cared, you'd have helped her instead of humiliating her." Tears filled Cheryl's eyes, but Marcus didn't look away. He had seen too many faces like hers, the kind that apologized only after the damage was done. 10 minutes later, the plane's doors remained closed. Airport security had arrived, but instead of removing Marcus, they listened as he explained everything. Every word, every detail, every regulation broken. The captain vouched for him. "He's right," he said solemnly. "He showed me the documents. The child was authorized to fly. The oxygen equipment was cleared. It was my crew's mistake." The lead security officer nodded. "Understood, sir. We'll document this and report it to the FAA immediately." Cheryl tried to speak, but the officer silenced her with a gesture. "Ma'am, you'll need to come with us for questioning." As she was escorted off the plane, the cabin filled with quiet applause. Some passengers clapped, others simply smiled at Marcus with respect. Amara stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Daddy, did we stop flying?" Marcus smiled softly, brushing her cheek. "We did, sweetheart. Daddy stopped the plane for you." Her lips curved faintly under the oxygen mask. "You're like a superhero," he chuckled, though his eyes glistened. "No, baby girl. I'm just a dad who won't let anyone hurt you." The captain leaned closer. "Mr. Bennett, we can prepare another flight once this is resolved." Marcus shook his head. "No need. I'll arrange a private medical jet for my daughter. She's been through enough for one day." The captain nodded respectfully. "Understood, sir. And I'm truly sorry." Marcus stood, holding Amara in his arms. The passengers parted to let them pass, offering gentle smiles and words of encouragement. As he walked toward the exit, a woman whispered, "He grounded the flight for justice." Another replied softly, "He didn't just ground a plane, he grounded arrogance." Outside, the bright afternoon light poured through the terminal windows. Marcus paused by the gate, looking back at the aircraft, now quiet, humbled, and still. He took a slow breath, whispering to himself, "Never again will she be treated like less than what she is, precious." He adjusted Amara's oxygen line and walked on, unaware that by the time the video from Flight 482 hit the internet, he and his daughter would become symbols of something far greater, dignity and power in the face of prejudice. By the time Marcus and Amara reached the terminal lounge, the world outside their flight had already begun to change. It started with a single video, shaky, grainy, filmed from row 12 by a woman named Lisa Hernandez. She'd caught everything: the flight attendant's harsh tone, Marcus's calm explanations, Amara's faint gasps for air, and the moment Marcus revealed who he truly was, an FAA investigator. The clip was barely 3 minutes long, but within an hour, it had millions of views across every social media platform imaginable. The caption read, "Father defends his daughter with a medical condition after being harassed mid-flight and grounds the entire plane." In the airport cafe, Marcus sat with Amara, gently holding her hand as she sipped warm water through a straw. Her color was slowly returning, but her eyes still looked tired. "Are you okay, baby?" he asked softly. Amara nodded. "Yeah, Daddy. I just don't like when people yell." Marcus smiled faintly. "Neither do I." He brushed her hair aside, his heart heavy with the memory of what had just happened. He'd seen discrimination countless times, in airports, hotels, even hospitals, but seeing it directed at his daughter, that was something else entirely. As he sat there, his phone buzzed non-stop, calls from colleagues, reporters, and even the FAA's public relations team. He ignored them all. He wasn't ready for politics, not now. All he cared about was Amara's comfort. But the world wasn't waiting for him. Across the terminal, people began to recognize him. Some approached hesitantly. A woman wearing a Delta badge stopped near his table. "Sir, are you Marcus Bennett?" Marcus sighed, setting his phone down. "Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to say..." Her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry for what happened. That should have never occurred. My sister works in customer service. She saw the video. We're all horrified." Marcus gave a small nod. "Thank you. I appreciate it." Nearby, passengers gathered, whispering, pointing. Some clapped quietly, others offered sympathetic smiles. Amara looked around, confused. "Daddy, why is everyone looking at us?" He chuckled softly. "Because they saw what happened, and they're proud of you for being brave." Amara's lips curved faintly beneath her oxygen mask. "Did we win?" Marcus squeezed her hand. "We didn't win yet, baby girl, but we're getting there." Meanwhile, online, the story exploded. News channels replayed the clip. Hashtags like #GroundedForJustice and #AmaraDeservesBetter trended worldwide. Celebrities, activists, and everyday travelers spoke out. One comment read, "That father didn't just protect his child, he protected every passenger who's ever been treated unfairly." Another said, "How many times does this happen when no one's filming?" Within 24 hours, the airline released a statement. "We are deeply sorry for the unacceptable behavior displayed by a member of our crew. An internal investigation is underway, and the employee has been placed on immediate suspension." But the internet wasn't satisfied. People demanded more. Suspension, a viral tweet read, if Marcus hadn't been FAA, would they have listened at all? At a hotel later that night, Marcus sat by Amara's bedside as she drifted to sleep. The city lights flickered through the window, but his thoughts were miles above, still replaying the scene on that plane. He opened his laptop, finally reading through the countless messages pouring in. Among them was one from the FAA regional director, his superior. "Marcus, the administrator saw the footage. We stand behind you. The agency will investigate the incident officially. Expect a full inquiry in the morning." Marcus exhaled slowly, his eyes softening as he looked at his sleeping daughter. "We didn't ask for this," he whispered to himself. "But maybe we were meant to stop it." He scrolled again. One message caught his eye. It was from the woman who filmed the video, Lisa Hernandez. "Faye, Mr. Bennett, I just wanted to say thank you. My little boy has asthma. I've been scared to fly with him because I know how people look at us. But watching you stand up for your daughter, it gave me courage." Marcus smiled, a tear slipping down his cheek. "Maybe this is bigger than us, Amara," he murmured. "Maybe this is about every parent who's ever had to fight to be heard." The next morning, the story hit every major outlet, CNN, BBC, NBC, and countless local stations. Talk shows replayed the clip, dissecting it frame by frame. A panelist on Morning View said, "This isn't just about an airline, it's about empathy, or the lack of it. That little girl represented every vulnerable person who's ever been mistreated in a system that's supposed to serve them." Even the airline's CEO went public. "We have reached out personally to Mr. Bennett and his family," he said solemnly. "We've also initiated mandatory sensitivity and medical emergency training for all flight staff effective immediately." Meanwhile, Cheryl Madsen, the disgraced flight attendant, faced her own storm. Her name leaked online, and though Marcus never encouraged the backlash, the internet showed no mercy. She issued a tearful apology on social media, claiming she never intended to discriminate, but few believed her. Marcus didn't want revenge. He wanted change. Later that day, he sat across from a group of reporters during a small press briefing arranged by the FAA. Cameras flashed as microphones surrounded him. "Mr. Bennett," one reporter asked, "do you plan to take legal action against the airline?" Marcus paused, then shook his head. "No. What I want isn't money, it's accountability. I want airlines to train their staff to see people, not their color, not their assumptions, but their humanity." The room fell silent. He continued, "My daughter was fighting to breathe, and someone tried to make her feel like a burden. That's not just wrong, it's dangerous. If speaking up can prevent that from happening again, then that's what I'll do." That night, as the media buzz quieted, Amara climbed into her father's lap and whispered, "Daddy, are we famous now?" Marcus laughed softly. "Maybe a little. Does that mean people will listen to us?" He kissed her forehead. "I think they already are." As she drifted to sleep again, Marcus looked out the hotel window, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. Somewhere above, planes streaked across the night sky, symbols of progress, but also reminders of how far humanity still had to go. He whispered into the darkness, "Tomorrow the skies will be safer, for you, for every child like you." And he meant it. The story of Flight 482 spread like wildfire before the plane even landed. By the time Marcus Bennett stepped off the aircraft, the world already knew his name, and the name of his daughter, Amara. Videos from shaken passengers showed every cruel moment. Cheryl Madsen's voice echoing through the cabin as she told a sick child to leave if she can't handle flying, and Marcus's steady command that had grounded the flight. The footage wasn't just viral, it was revolutionary. People saw not just a father, but a man who stood up to discrimination with calm power. Reporters waited outside the terminal, their cameras flashing as Marcus carried Amara gently in his arms, oxygen mask secured, her small hand clutching his shirt. "Mr. Bennett, are you pressing charges?" one journalist shouted. Marcus didn't stop walking. His voice was low but firm. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for accountability. My daughter's life is not a policy violation. It's a reminder that compassion should never require permission." That line alone became the quote of the year. Within hours, Airway International Airlines issued an emergency statement. Cheryl Madsen was placed on immediate suspension pending investigation. But Marcus didn't stop there. He filed a formal FAA safety and conduct complaint, detailing not only Cheryl's behavior but the entire flight crew's failure to act when Amara's health was at risk. When he walked into the press conference the next morning, wearing the same navy blazer, FAA badge gleaming, the room went silent. Cameras pointed, pens hovered, the world waiting. "Mr. Bennett," a reporter asked, "how does it feel to know you stopped a flight mid-air?" Marcus took a breath. "I didn't stop a flight," he said. "I stopped negligence. I stopped the moment where silence could have killed my daughter. That's not grounding a plane. That's grounding our humanity." The applause that followed wasn't professional. It was emotional. Even the reporters couldn't help but clap. Meanwhile, Cheryl Madsen sat across from her supervisor in a cold conference room. Her face was pale, trembling. The woman who once barked orders now couldn't find her voice. "Do you understand the magnitude of what you've done?" the supervisor asked. Cheryl nodded slowly. "I didn't mean... I just thought..." "You thought wrong," the supervisor cut in. "You humiliated a sick child, and her father was an FAA investigator. You didn't just break airline policy, you broke public trust." When Cheryl saw the news later that evening, Marcus holding Amara's hand at a children's hospital speaking softly about empathy and awareness, tears streamed down her face. It wasn't guilt alone. It was the crushing realization that she had forgotten what her uniform truly stood for: service. Weeks later, Amara recovered enough to walk again. Marcus brought her outside one morning to watch the planes rise over the horizon. The same sound that once terrified her, engines roaring through the clouds, now made her smile faintly. "Daddy," she whispered, "are we ever going to fly again?" Marcus knelt beside her. "We will," he said gently, "but next time the world will be a little kinder." She smiled, leaning against his shoulder. "You're like a superhero." He laughed quietly. "No, baby, I'm just your dad," but deep down he knew he'd done something greater than any title or investigation could match. He'd reminded the world that dignity is not optional, not on planes, not in offices, not anywhere. Months later, Airway International announced new training policies inspired by the Bennett Directive, a formal FAA standard ensuring that crew members must receive specialized instruction for assisting passengers with medical or accessibility needs. At the ceremony, the company's CEO handed Marcus a plaque engraved with the words, "For grounding a flight and lifting the conscience of the skies." As Marcus took the stage, Amara sat proudly in the front row, her oxygen machine quietly humming beside her. The crowd rose in applause. He looked over at her, then at the audience, and said softly, "Every flight should carry more than passengers. It should carry compassion. My daughter taught me that..." A single tear rolled down Amara's cheek. The crowd fell silent, united in the understanding that sometimes the most powerful act isn't taking off. It's standing your ground.